Imagine two people. They earn almost the same amount of money. They have similar jobs, similar opportunities, and similar intelligence. Yet one becomes financially free, while the other spends his entire life worrying about money. Why? The answer isn't always income. It isn't intelligence. And it isn't even luck alone. It's psychology. Money is not just a mathematical game, it's an emotional game. It's about how you think, how you behave, what you believe, what you've experienced, and what you're willing to sacrifice. And that's the central idea behind Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money. This book doesn't teach you how to get rich overnight. Instead, it teaches you something far more valuable: how to think about money in a way that can help you build wealth, protect it, and actually enjoy your life. So today, let's explore some of the most powerful lessons from the psychology of money and understand why your relationship with money may matter more than the amount of money you make. Let's begin. The first lesson is simple. Doing well with money has surprisingly little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. We often assume that wealthy people must understand investing better than everyone else, that they know secret strategies, that they can predict markets, that they understand complicated financial formulas. But reality is different. Someone can have an incredible understanding of finance and still make terrible financial decisions. Why? Because knowing what to do and actually doing it are two completely different things. You might know that you shouldn't spend more than you earn. You might know that investing for the long term is important. You might know that panic selling during a market crash is dangerous. But when emotions take control, knowledge can disappear. Fear can make you sell. Greed can make you take unnecessary risks. Ego can make you spend money just to impress people. And impatience can make you abandon a good strategy before it has time to work. So financial success isn't only about intelligence. It's about behavior. The person who consistently makes reasonable financial decisions for decades can outperform the person who makes brilliant decisions occasionally. You don't need to be a financial genius. You need to develop financial discipline. And that leads to the second lesson. Everyone has a different relationship with money because everyone has a different history. Imagine someone who grew up during a recession. For them, money might represent security. Now imagine someone who grew up watching their parents become extremely wealthy. For them, money might represent opportunity. Someone who experienced poverty may be extremely cautious with spending. Someone who experienced financial abundance may be comfortable taking risks. Two people can look at the exact same investment and reach completely different conclusions. And neither person necessarily thinks irrationally. They're simply looking through different experiences. This is incredibly important because we often judge other people's financial decisions without understanding their past. We ask, why would they spend that much? Why are they so afraid to invest? Why aren't they taking more risks? But money isn't experienced objectively. It's experienced personally. Your financial beliefs were shaped by your childhood, your family, your successes, your failures, and the economic environment you lived through. Understanding this can make you more patient with yourself and with others. Your financial journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Because your circumstances aren't the same. Your goals aren't the same. And your definition of success shouldn't be the same either. The third lesson is one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. Wealth is what you don't see. We often confuse being rich with looking rich. A luxury car is visible. A designer watch is visible. A huge house is visible. An expensive vacation is visible. But the money sitting quietly in an investment account isn't visible. The emergency fund isn't visible. The debt that someone avoided isn't visible. The financial freedom created by years of saving isn't visible. That's why appearances can be incredibly misleading. Someone driving an expensive car may look wealthy, but perhaps they are deeply in debt. Someone driving an ordinary car may look average, but perhaps they have years of living expenses saved and investments quietly growing in the background. This gives us an important distinction. Being rich is having money. Being wealthy is having financial freedom. Richness is often about what you can show. Wealth is often about what you can choose not to show. The ability to say no to a job you hate. The ability to handle an unexpected emergency. The ability to take time off without panicking about money. The ability to make decisions based on what you want rather than what you desperately need. That's real wealth. And sometimes, the most financially successful person in the room is the one who looks the least impressive. The fourth lesson. Compounding is one of the greatest forces in finance. We often underestimate what small amounts can become when given enough time. Imagine planting a tree. For years, it may appear that almost nothing is happening. Then slowly, the roots grow deeper. The trunk becomes stronger. The branches expand. Eventually, the tree becomes enormous. Investing can work in a similar way. The early years may feel boring. The returns may seem insignificant. You may wonder whether your efforts are even making a difference. But the magic of compounding is that your returns can begin generating their own returns. And over long periods, small advantages can become enormous. This is why time can be more powerful than trying to find the perfect investment. You don't necessarily need spectacular returns. You need reasonable returns sustained for a long time. The goal isn't to get rich quickly. The goal is to avoid making decisions that prevent you from staying invested long enough for compounding to work. And that brings us to another powerful lesson. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different skills. Getting wealthy may require taking risks, but staying wealthy requires managing those risks. You could make a fortune through one incredible opportunity, but if you take excessive risks afterward, you could lose everything. That's why survival is so important. In investing and in life, the ability to stay in the game matters enormously. You don't need to win every year. You don't need to maximize every opportunity. You simply need to avoid being permanently eliminated. This is why having an emergency fund, avoiding excessive debt, diversifying your investments, and maintaining a margin of safety can be so powerful. Sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't the one that makes you the most money. It's the one that prevents you from losing everything. Lesson number 6. You need to define what enough means. This may be one of the hardest financial lessons to accept, because there will almost always be someone richer than you. If you earn $1,000, someone earns $10,000. If you earn $10,000, someone earns $100,000. If you become a millionaire, someone else may be a billionaire. If your goal is to constantly beat other people, there is no finish line. There will always be someone ahead. And this creates a dangerous cycle. You earn more. You upgrade your lifestyle. You see someone with more. You want more. You work harder. You earn more. And the cycle continues. At some point you have to ask, how much is enough? Because if you don't define enough for yourself, someone else will define it for you. And that can be incredibly expensive. The desire for more isn't always bad. Ambition can change your life. but endless comparison can destroy your peace. Financial freedom isn't necessarily about having everything. Sometimes it's about realizing that you already have enough. Lesson number 7. The most valuable thing money can buy is control over your time. Think about this. Why do people want more money? Maybe they want a bigger house, a better car, more luxury. But underneath many of these desires is something deeper. Freedom. The freedom to choose where you work. The freedom to spend time with your family. The freedom to say no. The freedom to pursue something meaningful. The freedom to wake up without immediately worrying about someone else's demands. Money becomes incredibly valuable when it gives you control over your time. And time is the one resource you can never earn back. You can make more money. You can buy another car. You can replace a phone. But you cannot purchase yesterday. This is why financial independence isn't simply about becoming rich. It's about buying back your freedom. Lesson number 8. Expect uncertainty. One of the biggest mistakes people make with money is assuming the future will behave like the past. But the future is unpredictable. Markets crash. Economies change. Businesses disappear. New technologies emerge. Unexpected opportunities appear. Things happen that nobody predicted. And this means you shouldn't build a financial plan that only works if everything goes perfectly. Build a plan that can survive bad outcomes. Instead of asking, "What will probably happen?" ask, "What if I'm wrong?" What if your income disappears for 6 months? What if an investment falls dramatically? What if an unexpected expense appears? What if the economy enters a recession? Planning for uncertainty doesn't mean being pessimistic. It means being prepared. And preparation gives you something incredibly valuable. Peace of mind. Lesson number 9. Luck and risk are always present. We love simple stories. Someone became successful because they worked hard. Someone failed because they were lazy. But reality is rarely that simple. Luck can influence success, and risk can influence failure. You can make an excellent decision and still get a bad result. You can make a terrible decision and get lucky. That's why we should be careful about judging ourselves and others purely by outcomes. A good result doesn't automatically mean the decision was good. And a bad result doesn't automatically mean the decision was bad. Instead, focus on the quality of the decision. Did you make the best decision you could with the information you had? Did you manage the risks? Did you give yourself room for mistakes? That's a much healthier way to think. Lesson number 10. Save not only for a specific purchase, but for freedom and flexibility. Most people think saving is about buying something later. A house, a car, a vacation, retirement. But saving has another purpose. It gives you options. Money sitting in savings represents possibilities. It gives you breathing room. It gives you the ability to handle uncertainty. It gives you the ability to wait. And sometimes, the greatest benefit of having money isn't what you buy with it. It's what you don't have to do because you have it. You don't have to accept the terrible job. You don't have to borrow money during an emergency. You don't have to sell investments at the worst possible moment. You don't have to depend entirely on your next paycheck. Savings create flexibility. And flexibility is a form of power. Now, perhaps the biggest lesson from the psychology of money is this. There is no single correct way to manage money. Your financial plan has to fit your life. A strategy that works perfectly for someone else may be completely wrong for you. Maybe someone is willing to take huge risks because they have decades ahead of them. Maybe you value stability more. Maybe someone wants to retire at 40. Maybe you want to build a business. Maybe someone wants luxury. Maybe you value simplicity. Personal finance is personal. The best financial strategy isn't necessarily the one that produces the highest theoretical return. It's the one you can actually stick with. Because the perfect strategy that you abandon is worthless, while a simple strategy that you follow consistently for decades can completely transform your life. And there's one final lesson worth remembering. Money is a tool. It is not the purpose of life. You can spend your entire life chasing money. And one day, you may realize that you traded the very thing money was supposed to give you. Time, freedom, relationships, experiences, peace. Money can make life easier, but money alone cannot tell you what makes life meaningful. So don't measure your life only by your bank balance. Measure it by your freedom. Measure it by your relationships. Measure it by your health. Measure it by your experiences. Measure it by how much control you have over your time. Because the ultimate goal isn't to die with the most money. It's to use money wisely enough that you can live the life you actually want. So if you take only a few ideas from the psychology of money, remember these. Your behavior matters more than your financial intelligence. Don't confuse looking rich with being wealthy. Give compounding enough time to work. Define what enough means before greed defines it for you. Protect yourself from catastrophic losses. Save money to create freedom and flexibility. Expect uncertainty instead of trying to predict everything. And most importantly, remember that money is a tool for living, not a replacement for living. You don't need to become the richest person in the world. You don't need to beat everyone else. You don't need to perfectly predict the market. You simply need to make reasonable decisions, stay consistent, avoid catastrophic mistakes, and give your money enough time to grow. Because financial success isn't about being perfect. It's about being patient. It's about being disciplined. And it's about understanding yourself. The greatest financial advantage you can develop isn't a secret investment strategy. It's the ability to control your own behavior. And once you learn to control that, you may discover something even more valuable than wealth. Freedom. That is the real psychology of money.